Okay, I should be live. Hi Toro. Hi Red Hat Meg. Yeah, the one called 1.5 ended at that point, and then I continued in part 1.75. I'm gonna have to go back and rename those later. I was kind of in a hurry. I got lipstick all over my straw. Hi, Artie. I got 12 viewers. That's not too bad for a start. I may not get through all of the videos today. We'll see. We'll see where I am at 4 p.m. because I don't want to. I can't really go until like fucking 7 p.m. again because it's Sunday and I have to go to bed early. Hi, Death's Head. All I play is Dark Souls. I like your name. Hello. Oh, now I have 8 viewers. I had more than that before. What happened? Oh, Arcade Soup, right. Cool. Welcome. Yeah, I was talking to you on Twitter last night. You've changed your username a few times since I've known you, so didn't realize. Everyone talk more. Well, I mean, if you don't want to watch the videos. "13 viewers isn't too bad." Well, now it's 12. What the fuck? Hi, Blue Iris. Did I? Yeah, I already responded to what you said earlier. We continued in part 1.75 or whatever. Although I think that video is blocked in some countries, so who knows if you can watch it or not. Okay, I guess I'll just go ahead and get started on this. I feel like the volume was a little low during the later videos last night, so I'm going to turn it up slightly and let me know if it's too loud. Oh, Oblivious made it, yay. Okay, let me go ahead and get started on this, and I can always... on a roll. He made 2 streams in a row. Turn it down a little bit on my end, though. That is a cool opening. Whoops, there it goes. Oh, hi, Tracy.
Hey, this is Dina.
Slash
Welcome
Bootsy.
to the den. Also, welcome to the 5th Hellraiser movie. That's right, we've crossed the barrier separating the theatrical releases from the straight-to-DVD sequels.
Oh, thank you so much, Toro. I guess I'll just call you Toro since that's the name you're using here, but I know who you are. Our whole family is gathered watching. Oh, wow. Hope your switch to streaming has been going good. Somewhat. It's very hard. I found that it's very hard to stream every day after work, so I've only been streaming on Saturdays lately, but... Oh, thank you, Artie. Vodka Red Bull time. Oh my god. Be careful. Inferno's actually okay, I think. Yeah, I think so too. Arcade Soup is a different channel for our animations. Yeah, I remember that. Okay. Animation fan vid. That sounds fun. I look forward to seeing that. Okay, let me get back to this. I'll try to not check
Something
the
to keep
chat
in
for a
mind
bit.
about these movies is that A, there's no involvement from Clive Barker, and B, the people who made these movies generally wanted to set them apart from the earlier ones. And to be fair, I'm not saying more Hellraiser sequels needed to be made. But there just comes a time where if you're gonna keep making sequels, you have to start changing things. Otherwise, it just feels like the same movie over and over. And yes, of course, Clive Barker hates these movies, but let's be perfectly honest, okay?
Clive Barker
he has
hates
ample
everything.
reason to be biased. They took a creation of his and changed
I
it.
understand.
Of course he's going to hate it. If someone did that with one of my characters, I'd probably hate the final product too, no matter how it turned out. But that doesn't make the straight-to-DVD sequels objectively bad. Of course, they aren't all objectively good either. I'm just saying that I know how it sounds with a lack of involvement from Clive Barker and the fact that they went straight to DVD, but let's give them a fair chance instead of just assuming they'll be bad. I love this opening sequence, both the imagery and the music.
It was pretty cool.
Maybe not very Hellraiser-like, but I still dig it. Oh, that's better.
Bob Weinstein. Boy, sure love seeing that name in the beginning of every Hellraiser movie.
Anyway, we open on this guy who looks vaguely like Angel sometimes.
And yeah, I know now that this guy was also in Nightbreed, but I haven't seen Nightbreed in a long time, so I didn't recognize him.
He's also a hell of a chess player, apparently.
You played right into my game, Professor.
Still looks like David Boreanaz.
So this is
to me.
Joseph Thorne, a police investigator, so cue the film noir style narration.
Even as a little kid, I was always one to examine things closely. The world was full of riddles and mysteries and puzzles.
Yep, he likes puzzles. I think we know where this is going.
What I never could have imagined was that one day my own life would become the most challenging puzzle of all.
So he's sent to investigate a horrific murder that took place in a dark room with a very ritualistic vibe.
Here's what he looks like with a face.
Shiva's a glow wrestler.
Turns out he knew
Hi,
the guy
Jason.
in high school.
One year, he tried out for the basketball team. He tortured the shit out of him until he quit. He gave him hell.
See this murder victim? We totally bullied him in high school. It was awesome.
Yeah, this is the kind of guy we're dealing with.
He may look like David Boreanaz, but he's no angel. Get it? He also finds a vial of coke, which he keeps. In a weird way. Anyway, there were hooks involved. And here we find the lament configuration, almost hidden under a candlestick. But he's more interested in the candle at the moment because...
It's a child's finger.
Later on, he pockets some money from the victim's wallet. He also takes the puzzle box home. When he gets home, we see that he has a wife and a daughter. That's a very stylish shot.
Are you home for the night?
Actually, I caught a case.
Of course he's obsessed with his job and his wife hates it. Oops, correction, he cheats on her with hookers.
Most men just leave.
Oh, hi, Hershey.
I know that would kill her.
Oh yeah, so selfless of you to keep your marriage going instead of freeing up your wife to find a guy who isn't a cheating asshole.
If doing this keeps me coming back, then who is to say what's right and what's wrong?
Yeah, it's not that hard to tell in this case, actually. Anyway, hookers and blow is clearly what this guy's into. Oh, I get it. This is not Frank 2.0. For what it's worth, he's already more interesting than JP.
Come a day.
Granted, that's not saying much. Speaking of which, he still had the puzzle box with him, so the next morning he starts fiddling with it in the bathroom.
Gary Sinise.
Uh-oh, it's never a good sign when the puzzle box makes that configuration.
Trying to see if I agree with you about him looking like Gary Sinise.
When he leaves the bathroom, he's suddenly
I
not
don't
in the
think I see
motel
it.
anymore, but what appears to be a child's bedroom.
Dreaming.
Does kind of sound like him, though.
And suddenly Cenobite.
Hookers and blow fun.
Actually, it's the Wire Twins.
Thank you, Arcade Soup, aka Toro.
They, kind of bring a more literal meaning to the term torture porn. But Joseph seems to be into it. along with another new Cenobite, Torso.
Ow.
And finally, Pinhead. Yeah, I know
Change
it's
the
very
color of
early
the
for him to
boxes?
show up, but he has very little screen time in this movie, so it's kind of nice to get a little taste of him early on. That sounded kind of wrong, but I think Pinhead would approve.
Definitely.
Apparently that was a nightmare, but he wakes up on the bathroom floor with a puzzle box, so it's hard to say how much of it was. But he is back in the motel room. So anyway, Joe goes back to work and talks to the forensic scientist, who has some news about the damage caused by the hooks.
They weren't like piercings for jewelry. It was something bigger, more cutting, like
maybe it was supposed to hurt.
bingo.
And the finger.
Well, the print was burned off completely, but from the bone growth, I'd say the kid was about 6 or 7 years old. From the blood flow and tissue morbidity, I'm pretty sure when the finger was cut off, that kid was still alive.
So a bit later, he gets a desperate call from the woman he was with last night. How long are you gonna just sit there and listen to her scream? Well, he's obviously too late, but he goes back to the motel room anyway. We don't see the evidence of it, but he
When
finds
did
her
the
dead in
Hellraiser
the
movies get all
shower.
gore and jump scare crazy? I mean, they were kind of always like that. These ones are actually, the later ones are actually less
When Joe's
gory.
partner Tony goes to investigate, Joe gets a pack of cigarettes
Do
and
have
a
more
pen
jump
out of
scares,
Tony's
though.
car without getting fingerprints on it.
What the fuck? What the fuck do you mean you stayed there last night? Jesus Christ!
Something about the way he says Jesus Christ tickles me. This guy, I saw this guy in an episode of Law & Order SVU like last season. I was like, oh hey, I know him from Hellraiser Inferno.
What did you do?
Afterwards, he
that
tells
happens.
Tony about the prostitute last night
I have no fucking idea who did that to her.
and tries to get him to help him cover it up.
If I get connected with this thing, everything I have, my family, 10 years on the job, gone.
Against his better judgment, Tony helps Joe clean up all the fingerprints and any evidence that Joseph was there last night. And while Tony is calling it in, Joe plants his cigarettes and pen on the scene, stabbing his partner in the back. Metaphorically.
I specify
Seriously,
metaphorically
Joe is a
because
special kind of
later on.
asshole. Nice jump scare. Anyway, he finds another dismembered finger, and this one is fresh.
This child is still
Squishy.
alive. We gotta find this kid.
Anyway, a
Maybe
fingerprint that
that's
was
squishy.
on the lament configuration matches up with something, and it leads him to a body piercing parlor, which is called stigmata, which is interesting. The first definition listed for stigmata on dictionary.com is a mark of disgrace or infamy, a stain or
throat's bothering
reproach
me a little
on
bit.
one's reputation, which can be twisted a bit to mean body piercing in a negative way. But it also describes part of Joseph's motivation. The murder of the prostitute could leave a stain on his reputation, which is part of why he wants to solve this case. Nice one, movie.
Let's talk about the box. Little gold box, about 4 inches square. J. Cho told me I could find it here.
It turns out that the first victim owed money to someone called the engineer.
And you tell J. Cho the next time I see him, I'm gonna rip his fucking head off. And he'd still be better off dealing with me than with the engineer.
Fresh fingers, just
I see what
novelty
you're doing
soap.
here, movie. Also, I love this guy's crown of thorns tattoo, because another definition of stigmata is marks resembling the wounds of the crucified body of Christ. I guess this guy is just really into that concept.
Hunt for the engineer. And the engineer will hunt you.
He also has an interesting tattoo on his back. That was part of the background music, but for a second it sounds like the Wire Twins have chipmunk voices.
So are you gonna frisk me or fuck me?
But it turns out that Joe is hallucinating. Little less subtle with the stigmata on that tattoo.
My man.
Hey, man, how are you?
Afterwards, Joe goes to see an ice cream man who sells cocaine on the side.
I want my birthday present.
You got a lot. Fucking birthdays.
Seriously, dude, I think you've had enough. When you start seeing Wire Twins everywhere, I'd say that's a bad sign.
I am putting my
Cocaine's a
hair
hell of a
up.
drug.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Either way, Joe questions him about the prostitute.
Who does she work for?
Oh, come on, man. I'm out of that business.
And then the questioning turns into a pretty rough interrogation.
Dude, what am I? You whipping boy?
Yeah, about that.
I never met him, I swear to God, I just heard stories.
So it turns out that the prostitute works for a guy named Terry, who worked for the
He's got a lot of nudie pictures on his wall, so I have all these little floating puzzle boxes covering them up.
engineer, and it didn't go well for him.
I probably missed a
Finds out
couple.
that he's in love. Well, he said
There's so many.
But the engineer said no. And when Terry came home, just a note where her body should have been.
Oof.
It said, I kept what I needed. The rest is yours.
You talk to him. By the end of the day, I want to know where I can find the engineer.
Sometime later, Joe meets with Tony, and he's worried that Joe has crossed a line.
Otherwise, you just keep crossing them, one after another, you know, until you're just lost.
Oh boy, he has no idea.
The yodeling twins.
About wiping your prints off. We'll tell him what we did. It's the right thing to do.
So now Joseph finally comes clean about framing Tony.
Where's your pen? That's right, it's probably at the crime lab by now. Forensics picked it up. You left it at the scene. You left your smokes there too, Tony.
But not as a confession.
You have 2 years in the precinct. How do you think they're gonna believe, me or you?
You fucking scumbag.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So he's going to blackmail his own partner. If Tony helps him cover up his indiscretion, he'll cover for Tony and say that he just messed up while they were at the scene.
The worst you're gonna get is a verbal reprimand. Just had to cover my ass. That's all.
And I trusted you.
After Tony leaves, a kid shows up with a VHS tape for Joe, which he just puts right into the restaurant's TV. I sure hope there's nothing horrible on it. So you can't see anything, but a guy is getting flogged with hooks off screen, and the sounds are pretty horrific and telling.
Oh god, the tearing sound and splattering. Oof.
If you remember a line from earlier, you might figure out who's being murdered. And then we see that this guy is the murderer. And he has an interesting method for burning the fingerprints off the fingers. As he's leaving another dismembered finger for Joe to find. We also get a glimpse of his handiwork. Remember this comment he made earlier?
Who am I, you whipping boy?
Later, Joe tries to show the tape to people, but there's nothing on it now.
Okay, I know what I saw.
Joseph.
Yeah, the symbolism isn't terribly subtle, but I appreciate it. I appreciate that they tried,
so he tells him to go
though.
see the department counselor.
There's a child's life at stake here.
All the more reason. It's not optional.
Please, sit down.
There's mention of him being a priest, which is a really subtle clue to something really big that gets
2001. Good
revealed
question.
later. Also, it's hard to tell with the beard and glasses, but this guy is played by James Remar, also known as Movie Raiden 2.0. I just thought that was interesting. I'm
Yeah.
also now imagining what this character would be like if played by Christopher Lambert. Probably a lot more hammy.
Sorry.
That's a Chinese thing, right?
I love
First
Christopher
keeps
Lambert
me in
in
the
Mortal
zone.
Kombat.
Close-up magic. I bet your daughter loves that.
Just mostly used to entertain myself.
And hookers. Later that night, after we get more
Entertain
noir-esque
myself and
narration,
hookers.
Dr. Gregory said that he envied the innocence of children. But staring at the
This came out in October 3rd, 2000.
faces
So you're
of
pretty
thousands
close.
of missing kids, envy is the last thing you feel. And most of these little ones were gone for good.
Grind those balls, sir. Grind them.
he hallucinates the same
Oh,
Cenobite from
too
the
bad
videotape.
Special Iron missed that.
The next day, they found the ice cream truck.
Doesn't this guy usually give us the finger?
Of course, Joe knew about
this guy
everything that was
usually
going
give
to
us
be
the
in it
finger?
because of the videotape,
That's
but Tony
cute.
is suspicious that he was involved somehow.
It was on the fucking videotape.
He also finds a clue that leads him to a bar called Crossroads. Is that more symbolism? I guess that Joseph was at a crossroads when he had to decide what to do about the murdered prostitute.
I'm looking for Mr. Parmaggi. Does he still work here?
Anyway, it's run by this weird guy.
I think it's done fine. It could be more subtle,
I can't
but
say I remember yours. I can assure you, Detective, you're quite mistaken about the engineer's message.
do I know that guy from somewhere? He looks vaguely familiar to me.
And there's the faceless Cenobite again.
Every movie needs a well-placed red
Hi,
dwarf
Wire
quote.
Twins. Hi, Torso. And then a couple of cowboys show up and kick his ass.
This is so random. I don't know what.
Stop! You're reminding me of Walker, Texas Ranger.
Still gonna find that child.
That, I suspect, is the object of the game.
Oh, thanks again, Arcade Soup. Is the crossroads symbolism for the Britney Spears movie.
So Tony helps him out and wants to take him to the hospital, but Joseph demands to be taken back to the police station. He actually goes to see the counselor again.
I was first on the force. I heard about somebody called the engineer. And then today, I heard his name again. Do you know what I'm talking about?
It turns out that he does know something about the engineer.
My first year as department counselor.
He tells a story about someone a lot like Joseph who had a case where everything led back to the engineer.
And in his delusions, he elevated the engineer to a figure of almost supernatural power.
Dealing with the engineer messed with his head so badly that he couldn't take it anymore.
Until one day he came to work, sat down behind his desk, and shot himself in the head.
Interesting.
The detective had it with him when he shot himself.
And this is also not the first case of the puzzle box being on a murder scene and then disappearing.
What is it? You couldn't get out of your head. I think you know.
It's called the lament configuration.
Okay, since this is a fifth movie, I think I could leave out the part where he explains the lament configuration and Cenobites. If you don't already know that stuff, go back and watch my previous videos. Better yet, watch the movies.
Oh yeah, the cowboy boots.
Hell, they didn't take me to hell.
You sure about that?
You opened the box?
Yeah, last night.
He admits that he's been seeing Cenobites ever since he first opened the box.
But the history is consistent. It opens, they come for you, and they leave. So if you're saying they left you behind, and you're still seeing them, then maybe they're still here.
Not exactly the news he was hoping for. Well, I'm past the halfway point, so I'm going to end part 1 here.
Oh, good
I
timing.
honestly recommend giving this movie a chance, so if you have any interest in it, go watch it before I get to part 2.
Okay, let me get caught up on the chat really quick. I responded to a couple of comments. Oops, I guess I didn't mark my place. That was dumb. Idiot number 345. Hey, look, an evil looking puzzle box. I'll take it home. Scam callers are getting weird. I think I reacted to fingerprints already. Is everybody in later Hellraiser movies an a-hole? No, I wouldn't say so. In this one and the following one, the main character is an asshole, but... Actually, still haven't watched the direct-to-DVD Hellraiser movies. I recommend this one and the next one and maybe the third. So which a-hole, Hellraiser a-hole was the worst? Joe Frank, the guy from Hellraiser 3, or the guy in the next movie? You mean worst as in, like, worst human being? Maybe Frank? What is your least favorite Cenobite? I don't know that I have a specific least favorite one. Just most of the ones in Hellraiser 3. Worst is in their actions, or worst is in how much we hate them for being bad characters. Yeah, that was what I was wondering. It's better than bar sports on TV. Fake mustache? I don't remember seeing anyone who looked like they had a fake mustache. Let's hope there are no other children in that restaurant. Yeah. Slender Man's cousin. Everyone's saying Slender Man. Oh, I guess you mean the faceless guy with the tongue. I guess I can see it. I don't know who you're talking about. Who can't disagree with me more about Lambert as Raiden? Sudden Rhinestone Cowboys. Damn it, where'd I leave off at? There we go. Every movie gets infinitely better when you just add a scene with cowboys beating up the main character. I don't remember if I read that one out loud before. I noticed it. I don't think I read it. Remember when the movie Cowboys and Aliens came out, it got a low score because there were aliens in the movie even though it's in the title. Oh, I see what you're saying. That's weird. Hi, Watuk. This movie doesn't look so bad. Yeah, I think it's pretty good. Well, Special Iron's not here. Somebody's got to make the typos. Actually really liked how Pinhead looked and sounded in the last Hellraiser direct-to-VOD movie. Oh, you mean Judgment? Haven't watched that one yet. My least favorite Cenobites are CD Head and that camera head dude. Yeah. I guess if I had to choose one, it would probably be CD Head. Camera head's pretty goofy too, though. Out of those Cenobites, Barbie was the best one, and that's not saying much. If I had to guess, I'd say Dina's least favorite Cenobite is the CD one. Yeah. Whatever his name is literally CD Head. Oh, thank you, Toro. Yeah, I think it's the same thing as a super chat. It's just got a little image on it. Third time's the charm for this question. Ever thought about doing a Buffy Angel retrospective and using screenshots to skirt around the bots? That's the third time you've asked that? I definitely didn't see the other times. I don't like using screenshots. I would just use footage and do the best I could with it. As for Buffy Angel retrospective, I don't know. There's probably been a million people who's done that already. I was playing Resident Evil 8 last night, and it was only a coincidence that... Oh well, you didn't finish that sentence. I have seen It Follows. I only saw it once, but I thought it was pretty good. Yes, I am aware that this didn't start out as a Hellraiser movie. I talk about it later. I wanted Massey on my lap while playing Resident Evil 8 and not because I was scared. Nope, not at all. Yeah, I said this yesterday, but I've heard mixed reviews about Hellraiser Judgment. A lot of people hated it, but I know of some people who did like it. At least Pinhead looks better, I'll give it that. I haven't actually watched it yet. CD head. Not that kind of CD. Barbie was the closest to the pseudo-Cenobites got to the naming conventions of the original Gash. Yeah. He feels a little bit similar to Butterball. CD Head just looked too goofy and his weapon just looks lame, yeah. Slicing her throat with a record player? What was that from? People are judging Hellraiser Judgment. Any plans for a film den with Stephen King movies? I mean, I've already done some. I'll probably do more at some point. Okay.
All
Great to do a
things
Blu-ray
can
head.
eventually be explained, but maybe some facts are in the eye of the beholder. Maybe some explanations are not of this world.
So Joseph remembers hearing his daughter cry out in the dream he had earlier, so he feels the need to run home and check on her.
I told you I was working a case.
Why do you keep lying to me, Joseph?
Ironically, he's not lying this time.
I'm here for a little while and then I gotta go.
When are you coming home?
So even though she's mad at him for being gone so much, she treats his wounds. Despite what an asshole he is, he definitely cares about his daughter, and I get the impression he cares about his wife, too. In fact, this hallucination could be symbolic of how, despite how he doesn't show it with his actions, he doesn't want to hurt her, but he knows he can't help it. Anyway, suddenly there's a call from his mother saying that she had a visit from someone.
Someone that you were looking for, something like that? I think that she said he was some kind of engineer.
He won't tell his wife what's going on, but he gives her a gun and tells her to lock the doors, and then he runs off, leaving them behind.
It's okay, baby.
I want my daddy.
His parents are in a convalescent home.
I'm here to see Art and Mary Thorne and their son Joseph.
I didn't know the Thorns had a son.
Is this woman the only receptionist in this place? It seems weird that she'd know off the top of her head which patients had kids and which didn't. Then again, there are a lot of weird things in this movie that will sort of be explained at the end. Anyway, his parents haven't had any previous visitors, but he's not convinced that they haven't, so he makes a beeline for their room. And speaking of weird things...
It's definitely weird.
You guys okay?
Why don't you visit us, Joe? He gets a little worse every day.
Well, apparently he really doesn't visit his parents very often, which suits his character, really. Anyway, there's his daughter screaming again, and he ends up in the bedroom again. It seems that he was intentionally lured out of his parents' room, and now he's locked out. And some horrific sounds begin. Check out how the blood seeps under the door as their screams taper off. That's pretty reminiscent of how the nightclub scene in Hell on Earth ended. I mean, if they were going to reference an earlier Hellraiser movie, I wish they'd picked a better one, but that's still a pretty cool callback to an effective scene. But then, he wakes up in bed from before the phone rang, indicating that the scene with his parents was a dream. But then they end up getting the same phone call.
I think that she said he was some kind of an engineer.
So he's off to the convalescent home again. But this time he tries to bypass the receptionist and is stopped by security.
Yes, we've been expecting you.
However, it turns out that they're missing and the bed is covered in blood. Ooh. I think we can guess what that gift is. I stand corrected, it's 2 fingers this time. And a clue of where to go next.
Hey! Your wife said you might be here.
Tony catches up with Joseph and tries to convince him to turn himself in, and a scuffle breaks out.
There is no engineer. There's just you.
Basically, Tony thinks that Joseph is the one committing the murders, since they're all linked to him, and he doesn't believe Joseph about the engineer. Can't say I blame him, all things considered.
Do you really think I could do those things?
I don't know, Joseph. We need help, Joe.
Go to hell.
So Joseph ends up going alone, and he ends up in a room where a telescope is set up. And now it's Tony's turn to die, because now he's getting stabbed in the back, literally. Poor Tony. I guess he knows the truth now. 7 days. 6 fingers.
6 murders. Only 4 fingers left.
I love to make that
I was starting
joke.
to wonder how many fingers that kid had left. Thanks for the update.
Ew, he put it in his mouth.
What do you want from me?
He was
I
dead,
want you
but
to
still.
go home, detective. Time to go home.
That can't be good. So of course he rushes home and calls in Tony's death on the way. So his daughter's room is empty, but he eventually finds a somewhat familiar-looking rotating pillar. It used to be a lot more gruesome, though.
Welcome home, detective. It takes hours to die from exposure.
Oh yeah, I forgot about this twist.
Either way, this is apparently symbolic of how he abandoned his wife and daughter, left them out in the cold, as it were. Meanwhile, the counselor is taking this a little too well. So the fingerprint had been burned off of each of the previous fingers, but with the one they found with Tony, it was...
I pointed it out at some point in the video, but noticed that the little cross pin on his jacket is upside down. I think that's a neat little bit of foreshadowing.
Wasn't.
What they found doesn't make any sense, though, Joseph, because the child's fingerprint, well, it's yours.
Also notice that the cross pin on his lapel is upside down. It wasn't before. Nice detail. We're not done learning things about this guy, though.
You even misunderstood me when I told you to go home. I didn't mean this place. I meant your first home.
You were the engineer.
It's as good a name as any.
So are you ready for this twist? Unconvincing CG aside.
What?
The counselor was Pinhead the whole time. Not as impressive of an entrance as in previous movies, but not bad either.
What are you?
What I am, who I am, is no concern of yours. I am not the killer. To find him, you must go back to the place from which you started. Go home.
Go home, Joseph. Nobody likes you. So now Joseph has to go back to the house where he grew up. And his old bedroom is the room that he kept ending up in earlier. In fact, that whole dream sequence near the beginning took place in his old house. Anyway, he sees himself as a child and his parents are much younger.
We'll save some of these for your father for when he wakes up from his nap.
Not sure if this is intentional, but the way this room falls apart reminds me of one of the deleted scenes from Hellraiser 2. In any case, the facade falls apart, his younger self disappears.
Don't you visit us, Joe.
Hellraiser Homecoming.
We never see you anymore.
And he's forced to defend himself against his parents. And now, he's out in the cold. But now it seems that he's getting attacked by everyone who died because of him.
I trusted you.
And once again, he shoots them in self-defense. Now the Cenobites have returned, complete with lesbian wire twin action. And now Joseph has reached his final destination, and everything is about to be revealed. That's a weird effect. I think just a simple theatrical casting of a spotlight on the kid would have been more effective. In fact, that's about to happen with 2 other figures, so I don't know why they didn't do that here too. In any case, he's only got 2 fingers remaining. So Kid Joseph is to Joseph's left. To Joseph's right, the faceless Cenobite appears. And reveals itself to be adult Joseph. And here come the chains. Stigmata again? He doesn't exactly have Christ's wounds, but he does look a bit crucified there.
Like a game of chess, perhaps. The pieces move apparently aimlessly, but always towards one single objective.
Leave it to Pinhead to make chess metaphors.
Don't you recognize your own flesh?
Finally, I was starting to think the counter wasn't going to change this time.
I don't understand. The eternal refrain of humanity.
Pinhead looks so good in this movie.
Ignorance, begging for mercy. You have destroyed your own innocence. Allowed your flesh to consume your spirit.
Ah, but he's making up for it now.
This is the hell you have created for yourself. Your flesh is killing your spirit.
With a 3-hit flesh combo.
You have forsaken yourself.
Hooks in the face. I'm not sure if it's a lighting trick or simply the white makeup, but Pinhead nearly looks like he's glowing here. That's pretty cool. Anyway, another finger has been severed, and now there's only one left. Those are some very small hooks and some very thick chains. Just compared to how it looked with Frank at the end of the first movie, where it was almost the opposite. And now another quotable line from Pinhead.
Welcome to hell.
But now Joseph wakes up in the motel room with the puzzle box again, and now it seems that everything from that early scene on was a dream. He even touches the prostitute as if to make sure she's real. It seems that Joe has had a Scrooge-like epiphany, and things are going to be different from now on.
Detective Thorne.
But then he gets that phone call from the prostitute again, indicating that he's in a loop.
What's the matter, Joe? You okay?
And he's just like, nope. But there he is in the bathroom again.
Every time I think I'm out, they pull me back in.
I forgot about that clip.
And now, the only thing I know for certain is that I will live with them forever.
The end.
That ending was dark. I like this movie. It's cheesy, but I like what it's trying to do. Barbie could mean the barbed wire wrapped around his head, or the fact that his fire breath barbecued his victims. Yeah, I think I said that yesterday. Oh, Phalis' review of Fatal Pulse. I haven't seen that one in a long time. Black girl looking at Joe like... I didn't notice if there was a expression on her face. Silent Hill, I love my daddy. Doctor crying out for her dad makes me think of Cheryl from Shattered Memories. Yeah, 2 people pointed that out. Feels like a Silent Hill movie more than the actual Silent Hill movies. It really does. Yeah, and Alex Shepard. Yeah, Alex Shepard is another guy I thought looked like David Boreanaz, so that's kind of amusing how that works out. Watching these streams with y'all brings back happy, nostalgic memories of when Arcade introduced me to you. Aw. Joke time. Zombie talking to a friend. I lost my job, my car was stolen, and my wife left me. I'm falling apart here. Ugh. Yes, I make puns sometimes. I want to play a game, detective. Oh, you're saying it sounds a little bit like Saw. Yeah, I can see that. Upside down cross is a symbol of St. Peter. I don't really know which saint that was. Hellraiser Homecoming, I already read that one. Pinhead has a really good radio voice. Yeah, the bit where he kills his parents is kind of hard to watch. Be quite clever if they meant it like that instead of the generic upside down cross is satanic, lol. I don't think they were trying to say it was satanic. I think it was just like a little clue that maybe something's off with this priest. So I actually kind of like that detail. I don't really care. I don't really care about whether it's I don't know, whatever. Tormented by the minions of hell, 9 out of 10 doctors recommend the shotgun. Lesbian wired to an action is worth the movie alone. Pinhead always looks good. Well, up until Revelations, anyway. Pinhead being the pyramid head for the detective cheater here. Oh yeah, kinda. The glowing, I totally believe, was another metaphor at the time. It could be. I think I point out that it makes him look angelic, which is kind of interesting. Welcome to hell, sir. The demon usher hands a platter of hors d'oeuvres. That's all the food he hates. Well, thanks for stopping by, Hershey. Daddy, where are you, Cheryl? Got to get the DVD of this one. I genuinely think it's pretty good. Yeah, it is one of the better ones. You made me want to play Shattered Memories for multiple years, but it's now over $100 and no digital versions? Oh, shit. Now I'm wishing I had Lee get it out of storage. I could have at least done a Let's Play of it. Or a stream. I've technically Let's Played it before, but... Pinhead was a precursor to Jigsaw. Oh, I know. Although, this particular movie... When did the Saw movies first come out? Saw came out in 2004. Yeah, this does predate the very first Saw movie. That's interesting. I was thinking maybe this particular movie might have come after the first Saw movie, but nope. Peter was the apostle who, when crucified, wanted to be done upside down because he didn't feel worthy enough to die in the same way as Jesus. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, snap. Revelations, the curse word of all Hellraiser movies. But one of the better ones if flawed. Yeah, I agree. Is this going to be posted? It was posted. I have this set to top chat. Let me make sure it's on live chat so I'm not missing any messages. Loved your original Shattered Memories Let's Play, and I'd love to see a new playthrough to see what changes you get. Yeah, that would be fun. Okay.
What's Hellraiser Inferno? Honestly, you guys, I don't hate this movie. I don't even dislike it. In fact, I think it's pretty good. I mean, okay, this isn't a masterpiece, and some of the symbolism may be a little too on the nose, but I didn't even expect to see this kind of symbolism in a Hellraiser sequel, let alone a straight-to-DVD one.
Yeah, there we go. That explains
and
it
also,
better.
I think some of the subtler symbolism, like stigmata and the upside-down cross and possibly crossroads, is pretty clever. I've seen people compare this movie to
again,
Jacob's
Toro.
Ladder in the vein of being a pale imitation, and I guess I can kind of see that. Things start out kind of normal, and then more and more weirdness is revealed. And then, at the very end, the big reveal is that none of that was really happening, hence the dreamlike quality of the narrative. Silent Hill Shattered Memories played out in a similar way. A lot of bad horror movies like to use that trope, where something horrifying happens to a character, but then it turns out to be a nightmare.
Speak
It's
of the
usually
devil.
used to shoehorn in a scare without any repercussions. With this movie, it makes sense, since both the character and the viewer are meant to be disoriented. Like I said, nearly this whole movie has a dreamlike or nightmarish quality to it. Speaking of which, I have to love how dark the ending of this movie is. Joseph, however much he may deserve it, is really put through the ringer, and he gradually learns that he was the one who put himself there. And once he realizes that he's been given a second chance, he decides to turn over a new leaf. Seriously, this could have ended like a Christmas Carol. It was said of Joseph Thorne that he knew how to keep Christmas well.
That was the George C. Scott version, if you're wondering. That's my favorite Christmas Carol version.
But that second chance turns out to be a cruel red herring, and he's stuck reliving that
Yes, I know
scenario
Inferno
for
wasn't written as a
eternity.
Hellraiser movie.
Because
I
just
talk
learning
about
his
that later in
lesson
the
wasn't
video.
enough. He had to suffer. So says Pinhead. Stephen King was once quoted as saying hell is repetition, and this movie is a pretty good example of that. Sure, there's moments of physical pain and a whole lot of mental anguish.
Do I mention it here? I know I mentioned it at some point.
It's like a more traditional hell.
I think I do.
But knowing that he'll have to go through it over and over and it'll never end is the worst part. It's one thing to not know what awaits you, but sometimes knowing what's coming and not being able to stop it is worse. By the way, if you're gonna have a Frank XP, this is how to do it. Joseph definitely earns his complete monster badge. We see him stealing drugs from a crime scene and getting it on with a prostitute after telling his wife he has to work late, and then framing his partner for a murder that he could have been suspected of. What makes him interesting is that there are tiny hints of goodness in him. He obviously loves his daughter and even his wife, even if he has a pretty fucked up way of showing it. And he's pretty horrified when he finds out that a child has been kidnapped. So he isn't a complete monster. And hell, the movie gradually veers away from showing us his misdeeds to how badly he's being put through the ringer, so we almost forget what a scumbag he is once it gets close to the end. Which is to show that he's learning from his experience, for all the good it'll do him. One thing I'm a little unsure about is whether or not he actually committed these murders. I always just kind of assumed that thinking he's responsible for these deaths was meant to be part of his punishment for stealing from crime scenes, cheating on his wife, betraying his partner, and just being an all-around asshole. You know, the stuff we actually see him doing. But an eternity of hell seems pretty harsh just for that. So maybe he did commit these murders, but just has Silent Hill-style amnesia about it, though maybe not exactly in the way they're shown. I doubt his wife and daughter froze to death in their house, for example. It's hard to tell. They do say that the murderer is part of Joseph, but I'm not sure if that means that Joseph necessarily did everything we saw the murderer doing. I think it's more likely that the murderers were meant to just be purely symbolic. If Joseph himself committed the murders, it seems like they would have had a montage or something showing that. IMDb does point out one oddity. The first finger Joseph finds was before he opened the lament configuration, which doesn't make sense since hell didn't open for Joseph before that, so the finger couldn't have come from the child version of him. The only explanation I could give is that maybe the movie starts on a second loop and it just happens to be the first that Joseph remembers. Either that or the creators really screwed up, which would be weird since the rest of the movie was pretty solid. There's also something interesting about this and the next 3 sequels
Okay,
that
thanks for stopping by.
I intentionally didn't mention before now because I wanted you all to at least give this movie a fair chance. They,
Here we go.
didn't start off as Hellraiser movies. Dimension had some unused movie scripts floating around, and they basically took them, rewrote them to include Pinhead, some Cenobites, and a lament configuration, and... ding! Instant Hellraiser sequels. There's also a distinct lack of gore, especially compared to Bloodline. I suspect it's mainly due to budget constraints. Also, torture porn hadn't become mainstream yet. Since this movie came out in 2000 and the first Hostel and Saw movies didn't come out until 2004. Otherwise, the makers of these movies might have taken advantage of that subgenre. Just seems like Hellraiser and torture porn would be a good match. So yeah, there's a reason why this movie and the next 3 don't feel like Hellraiser movies. Originally they weren't. But whatever, like I keep saying, I think most of them are watchable. And now on to the Cenobites. Well, on one hand, they have great designs in this movie. On the other, they have so little screen time that it's hard to tell. So consider this me helping you to appreciate them.
It's always my favorite part of the video where I talk about the Cenobites.
I'm gonna start with Torso, who could also be called Chatterer 3.0. This movie is one case where it's fun to read the Cenobite wiki and see how they padded the descriptions of some of these Cenobites. According to that, his creation was overseen by the original Chatterer, who made Torso in his own image and was his master. But after Chatterer was killed, Torso followed in his footsteps and joined Pinhead's group. I love that there's so much background given to this guy who has like 30 seconds of screen time in this movie. There was a line of action figures based on these Cenobites, so I'm guessing that most of this extra info comes from the back of the packaging.
I would love to
Either
have
way,
those.
I dig his design.
Sure
the
they
most
don't
obvious
exist anymore.
feature, besides the Chatterer aspect, is that he's cut off somewhere around the middle of his rib cage. Also, kudos for using practical effects. He looks pretty convincing. Also, it resulted in some amusing behind-the-scenes pics. It's too bad we only see him from the front, though. There are some images floating around the internet of a maquette someone did, I think based on an earlier design that they didn't go with, that shows how grotesque he looks from the back, showing a few bones of vertebrae sticking out. Also, he has various symbols carved into his skin. I kind of like how he just crawls around near the Wire Twins' feet as if he's their pet. Speaking of which, the Wire Twins are the first case I can think of where a Cenobite represents some kind of symbolism. In this case, they represent Joseph's insatiable appetite for sex. Again, the Cenobite Wiki tries to give them a backstory and tie them to the earlier movies by saying they're Leviathan's daughters of lust. In ancient times, they worshipped at the altar of beauty. The wiki also says that Angelique was a daughter of Leviathan, so I guess they're all sisters. Leviathan really needs to keep his kids in check. For what it's worth, I go back to some of what I said when I was talking about Angelique. They don't look like they were ever humans, so I can believe that they started off as demons of some kind. So I don't know how canon the whole Daughters of Leviathan thing is, but I accept it, at least as my own headcanon. Like Angelique, their outfits are made of glossy vinyl or PVC instead of leather like the other Cenobites, and are quite revealing. There's a big hole cut in the stomach area, revealing... Well, in the movie it's hard to see, but here it just looks like abdominal muscles. But in the action figures it looks like organs, which is kind of weird. Oh well. Their name comes from the wires that are attached to the neckline of the bodysuit, which are inserted into the bottom of the chin. Then they apparently continue under the skin, then through the eyelids, effectively stitching them shut, then back under the skin, continuing to the hairline where they come out again and gather at the top of the head, resembling a ponytail. That's pretty creative, if cringe-inducing. Other than that, they appear to have runes of some kind carved into their skin, the way Torso does, and each has a different symbol on the sides of the head. And of course there's that signature long black tongue that puts Gene Simmons to shame. Also, an early sketch shows that they were going to have pierced nipples, but the costumes had to be simplified due to budget constraints. Honestly, if you're going to have a sexy female Cenobite, these two, along with Angelique, is how you do it. There's got to be an interesting contrast between the sexy and the grotesque. That's what Cenobites are all about. You don't just stick pins in her head and throw a leather bikini on her and call it a day. If she's totally bangable without question, she's not a good Cenobite. Be ashamed, creators of the Hell Priestess figure. You failed. I had to mention that thing because everybody kept bringing it up to me. I'm like, fine, I'll comment on the fucking thing, shit. Well, that only leaves the faceless Cenobite, and there's not much to say about him design-wise. He has no eyes or nose, just a mouth where it looks like the lips have been removed. But other than that, his face is totally smooth, showing that he probably never had those features. And he also has the long black tongue like the Wire Twins. From the neck down, he just looks like a human with clothes. He doesn't even have an entry in the Cenobite wiki, though that might just be because he turns out to be Joseph wearing a metaphorical mask.
Welcome to hell.
And now on to Pinhead. Not too much of a change in design. He still has the pins with the rounded heads from Bloodline, but now it looks like the grid lines are deeper again, so they show up better. Also, the bloody parts on him are now a very dark red, where before they were a brighter red and they used to really pop against the black and white. It's not a big deal, but I kind of miss that. There's also something going on with his skin now. It has kind of a bumpy, leathery texture, and in some areas it looks a bit veiny. It makes him look even less human, which kind of works for his role in this movie, I think. Again, it's very small differences, just more than usual this time. And like I pointed out earlier, I like how somehow the lighting makes it look like the white parts on him are glowing. It looks weirdly angelic? Which reminds me, Pinhead's role is kind of different in this movie, but it also feels kind of familiar. In the first two movies, he's neither good nor evil, demon to some, angel to others, and was very businesslike about doing his job. In the third movie, he became blatantly evil down to the villainous laugh, and that just kind of continued in Bloodline. In this movie, he is back to being neutral, neither good nor evil, and just having a job to do. But his role is kind of different because he went from someone wanting to dole out pleasure and pain to, Hades? I don't know if that's the best example. Maybe Osiris? But basically, it seems that Pinhead's job is now to dole out punishments to bad people. And his name in this movie kind of alludes to that in a way. He's referred to as the Engineer. In the original novel, The Hellbound Heart, the Engineer was a Cenobite whose job it was to come up with punishments for people. So it's actually weirdly appropriate that Pinhead is being called that in this movie. Of course, in the first movie, this weird monster was called the Engineer, but not in dialogue, so it's kind of an unofficial name. So that's kind of confusing for fans. When I first saw this movie and they kept mentioning the Engineer, I kept waiting for that monster to show up again, and when it turns out it was Pinhead, I was like, what? But if you think back to the original novel, it does kind of make sense. Also, I'm not sure how I feel about the counselor being Pinhead that whole time. I loved it the first time I saw this movie because it caught me so off guard and it just blew my mind. But seeing it again, I'm not so sure anymore. It feels kind of random. And what about those scenes where the counselor was talking about having a wife and daughter and such? Like, was Pinhead just pulling all that out of his ass? Like, he just came up with a name and life story for this character he was playing? It feels like the counselor was always meant to be his own character, and his being Pinhead was added at the last minute. Which it probably was. Although the idea of James Remar playing Pinhead in a way kind of tickles me. Like, he's just doomed to always play characters that were already made famous by other actors. He is great in this movie, though. Anyway, if you can accept Pinhead as basically being Hades or Osiris, his role kind of works. I am at least glad that he's no longer some shallow villain, and he's been pushed back to almost a background player instead of having another installment of the Pinhead show. I've said this before, but it cannot be overstated. A little of Pinhead goes a long way. He is a compelling character and always a joy, but too much of him starts to kill that mystique that makes him so compelling in the first place. So kudos to this director for realizing that and putting it into practice. Though he admitted that he wishes he'd given Pinhead more screen time to make the fans happy. And with what little screen time he has in this movie, a little more actually couldn't have hurt. So I think that's about all I have to say about Hellraiser Inferno. Yes, it's got a lot going against it, with Clive Barker having been left out and the movie going straight to DVD, but I think it's surprisingly good, all things considered. It's kind of like if Hellraiser, Silent Hill, and Groundhog Day had a three-way and this movie popped out. If you can get past Pinhead's role being changed a bit, the general lack of gore, and how the movie just feels very different from the previous movies, I'd say it's definitely worth a watch. And even though it's a bit campy, I like that whole film noir aspect.
She is giving
and if
him a weird
nothing
look.
else, we've still got Doug Bradley as Pinhead. Better enjoy it while we can.
Mm-hmm.
That's it for now. See you next time.
I don't need to skip past the music. I'm just doing this to save a little bit of time. Didn't get around to talking about it, but I love the music in this. Oh yeah. Even if you don't love this movie, you've got to give them credit for trying to make something good. Still better than Hellraiser 3, fight me. Yeah, I keep saying still better than Hellraiser 3 all the way up until Hellworld, and I was like, okay, finally one that's worse than Hellraiser 3.
All the appetites you indulged. You have destroyed your own innocence.
Oh, it's this hypocritical much at the bottom. I forgot for a second that this was mirrored. I loved your original Shattered Memories Let's Play, and I'd love to see a new playthrough to see what changes you get. Did I read that one already? Oh well. Yeah, it would be nice if I played it again. I wish I had, like I said, I wish I'd asked Lee to get it out of storage, but I didn't think about it. I was too busy making sure he got Silent Hill 3. Revelation seems to be a cursed title for a lot of sequels, yeah. Well, I actually don't have very much chat to get caught up with. It's probably the lack of Special Iron. He's good at keeping conversations going. Inferno wasn't... Oh yeah, I already read that one and responded. Also, hi Brian. I don't think I saw you post before that. I try to say hi every time I see somebody's new post, but sometimes I don't notice. I watched Silent Hill's second movie until the Pop-Tart, and then I realized I had better things to do. Wow, that was only like 5 minutes in. You made the right choice, though. From what I understand, a couple of the straight-to-DVD ones weren't written as a Hellraiser movie. Yeah, I mentioned it in this video, but yeah, basically the next 3 after this one. 3? Maybe 2. Oh wait, I'm forgetting Hellworld somehow. Yeah, 3. Think that the finger being in a candlestick on top of the puzzle box means that it was created by the puzzle box. I don't know. Oh, thank you, Artie. Let's all appreciate the last good Pinhead in the series. You make such a good impression on us. We love you. Oh, thank you, Tracy. I like that little kitty avatar. He looks like he's making a kissy face. That's so cute. I said avatar. I meant emoji. Oh god, I recall the Saw and Hostel craze. Yeah, I was not a fan of the torture porn craze during that time. I basically didn't watch any horror movies then. Crazy how those got so popular is beyond me. I swear they were like the Fast and Furious movies of their days. Well, you know what? I saw there's a ongoing documentary that comes out every October, and conveniently it's made by Eli Roth, but despite that, it's still good. It's called, what's it called? History of Horror? I want to say it's called History of Horror. Anyway, they did a segment on torture porn, well, an episode on torture porn. They pointed out that essentially all horror subgenres kind of reflect the time period of when they came from, and torture porn came out during the time when everyone was talking about like waterboarding and whether or not, you know, torturing captives for information is you know, if that's moral or whatever. So I thought that was interesting when I learned that. It doesn't make me like torture porn anymore, but it at least gives it some kind of like context. Cowboy Cenobite supremacy? What? I Am the Way is one of the coolest things in a movie I'll never watch. Maybe the counselor or someone Joe knew from his other life, and Pinhead uses this priest-turned-counselor and family man as a disguise. That makes sense. Dina, did you know this movie was not written as a Hellraiser movie originally? God damn it, Artie. You're such a butthead. According to Christoph Gans, there are more Silent Hill games and movies. Well, I'll believe it when I see it. Artie was being smart-ass, Red Hat Meg. It's what he does. Speaking of other actors playing Pinhead, any thoughts on Jamie Clayton taking over the role? I don't know who that is, so no. Same, once saw Jump Started, I gave up on horror for like 5 years. Yeah, it sounds like me. And then the ghosts happened, and once again I lost interest in the latest horror fads. Yeah, another thing about torture porn, it happened right after the PG-13 horror craze, so I think it was kind of a reaction to that also. Your Movie Sucks Saw retrospective is a good dive into the series. Yeah, I think I've thought about watching that, but part of me thinks I might still watch the later movies. So, I haven't watched it yet, but I don't know. I did like the first Saw movie, but I've heard that the sequels aren't good, and I did see the second one and didn't really care for it. Yes, I read The Hellbound Heart. I actually talked about that in my first Hellraiser video. Also, hi Robert, I think this is the first comment of yours I've seen. Torture porn replaced the remake craze. Partly that too, yeah. Excuse me. Still like all the bad 2000s remakes over torture porn.
This is Dina. Welcome to the Den.
I don't like either.
And here we are with Hellraiser movie number 6. I was thinking that Hellraiser Bloodline was the last movie that Clive Barker was involved in, but it turns out that he did have a small amount of involvement with this movie, similar to his involvement in Hell on Earth. Basically, he was allowed to see an early cut of the movie and give feedback, and apparently they made some changes on the final act based on said feedback. I don't know what those changes were. Clive Barker's website doesn't have any quotes from him regarding this movie, but writer Tim Day is quoted as saying that Clive Barker liked it a lot and thought it was the best Hellraiser movie since Hellbound. I don't know if I'm going to agree, but let's give it a chance and see how it goes. They're kind of one movie late with the Dante's Inferno quote. Gotta say, I love the opening sequence with this extreme close-up of a spinning lament configuration. I like the music too, but it isn't very Hellraiser-like. And no, this isn't a fake out like with Inferno. This is what you get. Actually, it kind of reminds me of the theme to Labyrinth. It has a nice intensity to it, though. It works as a horror movie theme, but I kind of miss the booming, dramatic, orchestral opening theme that the previous movies had. Also, director Rick Boda wants to make damn sure you notice his name. We open
stick it right in front of the puzzle
Holy
box.
shit, it's Kirsty, you guys. So it turns out that she's been married to this guy who... Holy shit, it's Mayhem.
I'm your blind spot, and my job is easy. Hide big things. You're good.
Anyway, he's named Trevor, and apparently it's been something of a rocky relationship.
We're gonna work this out, right?
Yeah. I hope it's everything you want it to be.
Will be.
I was actually at my mom's house recently. We were watching TV and one of those Allstate commercials came on and my mom goes, oh, I hate this guy. And I'm like, what? Mayhem? I love him. My mom goes, of course you do. I was like, what? What does that mean?
Until he drives off the side of the bridge and the car fills up with water. Yeah, I don't think Allstate is going to cover that. Trevor manages to get out and swim to the surface for some air. Help me! Somebody! But Kirsty is stuck in the car. And drowns. Well, that was a short cameo. Bummer. Trevor wakes up in the hospital and... Notice this young female doctor who always has
Your mom's
words of
sassy, yeah,
encouragement
she
but
is.
never really answers his questions.
It's okay, Trevor. You're safe now.
Where's Kirsty? Where's my wife?
This should help you relax.
But things aren't quite right and he passes out.
Trevor, wake up, Trevor.
But then he wakes up in an even worse situation.
It's imperative that you stay calm.
As you can see, the thinnest layer of cortex separates the part of the brain that feels pleasure.
Yikes, I'm getting Hellbound flashbacks.
The mind is a labyrinth, ladies and gentlemen.
Hell, he'd be better off with Chenard. At least his operation room is clean and well lit.
Just relax, Trevor. We're helping you. Helping you remember.
Yeah, I don't think that's how memory works.
Yeah, Law and Order SVU, I
But
mentioned
apparently
that.
that was a nightmare.
What happened?
My name's Allison.
You had a dream too, Allison?
Notice that she introduces herself as Allison
This is a lot like Jacob's Ladder.
I'm gonna see you through this.
Hello, Trevor. Back again, huh?
Also, the other doctor doesn't directly speak to her.
I recommend that we admit him until we run the rest of the tests.
Well, I don't see any abnormalities. Time to wean you
God,
off
the
those
twist at the end of
painkillers,
this one is
though.
such a mindfuck.
In any case, Trevor has suffered a head trauma, and that's why he's confused and experiencing headaches.
Where's Kirsty? Where's my wife?
That's what I'd like to know.
And apparently Kirsty was never found after the car accident.
What if I took you back there, and walked you through it?
Done that already. Over a month ago.
And Trevor is also suffering memory loss.
You said you tried to pull her out of the passenger side, but the door was locked, right?
Yeah.
The report says the doors were open.
Maybe she unlocked them, swam out.
Maybe. I'll double check. Could be their bad.
So he ends up taking the bus home, and everything just seems a little off.
Yeah, here we go.
Music. You mind turning that down?
Except for the dipshit playing the loud music. That's all too normal.
Oh, that's later.
Honey, I'm home. That's right, I forgot. My wife is missing.
Oh.
How'd she come to bed?
Batman
He starts
Returns
thinking about
reference.
Kirsty, and apparently at one time their relationship was great. Or at least that's how he remembers it.
Hey, turn off the light.
At work the next day, everyone is staring at Trevor, who obviously missed a day of work, and the guy next to him assumes he had a hot date.
Secret's safe with me, pal. We'll call it a personal day, okay? Get some numbers going. Any numbers at all will do.
Yeah, if you could get some work done, that would be great.
We're all here for you, Trev.
Sure you are.
We're all here for you, Trev.
Anyway, Trevor looks around and finds a business card with the words, "All problems solved" on it, which triggers a memory where it led him to some shady underground sweatshop. Shades of Jacob's Ladder.
I can see into your soul.
Back in reality, he goes to the break room, and of course the food gets stuck. That's just the kind of day he's having.
Now what?
That's an odd place for a Titanic reference.
Come on, speak up. I'm trying to run a business here.
But in all
Yes,
seriousness,
Hellraiser
I
office
assume this woman is his boss. I guess she's mad that he spent more than 5 seconds getting a snack or something.
I know what you like.
And I guess the punishment for that is rape. Interesting business she's running. Anyway, Trevor doesn't quite remember, but apparently this isn't the first time these two have gotten it on.
What the hell are we doing?
Nothing we haven't done before. Now get some fucking work done.
Now get some fucking work done.
Some security guard must love his job.
Not very commanding sounding.
That's it.
Trevor finds the scene playing on his monitor when he gets back to his desk. But then the detective from earlier, Detective Lang, calls with more news about Kirsty.
We still haven't been able to locate your wife, although missing persons turned up some evidence that suggests foul play may have been involved.
So Lang is being super friendly about how he's wording it, but it basically comes down to the fact that all the evidence seems to be pointing to the fact that it looks like the car was driven off the bridge intentionally.
Anything that might have happened just before that accident that you haven't mentioned?
And now we see a slightly different version of the opening scene, showing that Trevor might be remembering it wrong.
You guys know something that I don't know?
All things considered, we probably know a lot less than you do.
On his way home that evening, he notices a guy in a mask staring at him. And there he is again. Suddenly, Trevor isn't feeling too well. I nearly missed the fact that his shirt is all wet in just this one shot. And that's why he wasn't feeling well. Fortunately for him, it was just a hallucination.
I did it. Well, what do you think?
Seems like every woman Trevor comes in contact with wants a piece of him.
Are you okay?
Not at all.
Wonder why that is. Anyway, Trevor ends up getting out an old videotape he'd made of their 5-year anniversary.
Something planned for you. Something I've been planning for a long time.
Planning what? There's not going to be a dismembered finger in there, is there? No, look at the size. We all know what that's going to be.
Where did you get this?
Interesting gift to give Kirsty. Either that's a really weird coincidence, or he was fucking with her on purpose, which would be really messed up. In any case, once again there's a knock at the door, only this time there's no one there.
Eels.
Nice jump scare. And oh look, it's Gwen from work.
Sit.
And apparently she's into the kinky stuff.
Don't make me beat you.
Well, she is in the right franchise for it. Who set up that camera?
Get off me. Go ahead, get up, get up.
You can say goodbye to that promotion.
But even after she leaves, the camera seems to be recording something that isn't happening.
Wheels instead of escalators? What?
And here we see our first 2 Cenobites, Surgeon and Bound. But now Trevor's at work, so I guess he never left and he dreamed all of that stuff that happened at home? Or maybe it's the next day.
I got some seriously weird shit going on.
That accident fucked you up more than I thought.
Anyway, the coworker gives him the information of an acupuncturist named Sage.
Anybody seen Gwen?
Apparently no one knows where Gwen is, so I guess this is the next day. Here, have some foreshadowing in the form of an ice pick. Anyway, acupuncture needles. That's kind of reminiscent of what the doctor was doing to his brain earlier.
I can see into your soul.
So now we're taken back to the flashback from earlier where he went to the sweatshop.
Trapped by a wife who suffocates you with forgiveness.
That's actually, whoops.
You're looking for a way out. This musical puzzle, created by a Frenchman.
Well, whatever. It's actually Doug Bradley playing this character. I didn't realize when I made this because he looks entirely different, and he's actually not credited for it. So, yeah.
Named LeMarchand.
Lamar.
I think maybe I do mention it in like a later video in passing because people were mentioning it in the comments section of this video. But yeah, unfortunately I don't mention it here because I couldn't tell.
Marchand's legacy continues.
Hey, Razorvine.
Yeah, this is definitely the kind of place where one would get a lament configuration. Fun fact, apparently the writer of this movie originally wanted to have this round puzzle instead of the usual puzzle box. Apparently Clive Barker's original idea was that there were many puzzles that led to the Cenobites dimension. And not just the box, and the writer of this movie wanted to do something with that concept. But once the script was turned in, the director said that needed to be changed. I can kind of see why. We've gone 5 movies with there being only the box-shaped lament configuration. It's a bit late to try to change it. Audiences probably wouldn't like it. Though I do think the round one looks cool, for the record. Anyway, once Trevor snaps out of it, he notices that Sage is gone. And the room goes dark. And there he is, emerging from an acupuncture diagram of all places. A little over 1/3 of the way into the movie. It's a little on the nose. This movie plays with the theme of needles and puncturing in general a lot, which you'd think would be leading to something important, but I think it's just meant to be symbolic of Pinhead. Looks like Pinhead is ready to do some acupuncture of his own. Also, I noticed that looks different than it did in Hell on Earth. I'm not calling out a continuity error, I'm sure Pinhead can look however he wants. Just think it's interesting. I don't think that's how you do acupuncture. Ooh.
Which do you find more exhilarating, Trevor? The pain or the pleasure? Personally, I prefer pain.
I never would have guessed. Anyway, of course, that was another hallucination.
Hello?
So this time he gets a call from Lang's partner, Detective
flip
Gibbons.
phone.
And once again, it's back to the police station, where Gibbons is basically accusing Trevor of murdering Kirsty.
You know, I've done my homework on you, man. You're real smart with numbers, aren't you? Where are you going with this?
And it turns out that she had an inheritance.
Kirsty's father and Uncle Frank had several sizable financial holdings when they passed away.
You know what? I can believe that. Larry did seem well off, and Frank must have had some money stashed away so he could travel the world in search of the lament configuration. I'm not sure about Frank leaving money to Kirsty, but maybe Larry had access to it and he had it set up so that Kirsty would get the money if they died.
It seems that she's the sole beneficiary, so if Kirsty's dead, like you seem so fucking certain.
Anyway, Gibbons is convinced that Trevor killed Kirsty so that he could get her inheritance.
I got a bad feeling about you, Trev.
Later that night, he's at home again, and the chick with the tattoo shows up again.
Can I, borrow something?
Yeah, sure, what do you want?
You?
And she's being rather forward.
Tie me up.
Apparently he has some
Smash
sort
cut
of
the
a past
movie.
with her
Kind
too
of
and
is.
doesn't remember it. Well, that was an awkward way to meet another Cenobite. Trevor, Stitch. Stitch, Trevor. And this time he wakes up to find blood everywhere, and now there's another dead woman in his apartment. Well, she did want to be tied up.
Now there's another dead woman in his apartment. I love how I said that.
Problem solved.
I don't think I was trying to be funny. It just came out. Came out
If
that
you
way.
forgot, that's the phrase that was printed on the business card earlier. But that doesn't make it any less true because the blood is gone. And so is the body. In fact, he goes to check on her and she's right there in her apartment.
If you know Tawny, you better know me, pal.
And apparently her name is Tawny. Suits her. Anyway, he gets
She
another
looks
call
like a
from
Tawny.
Detective Lang, and it's back to the police station
No
again.
offense to any Tawnies out there.
Why?
It's done.
Here's an interesting bit where he hears Lang arguing with his partner, but it turns out that Lang was the only one in the room. Also, Lang questions Trevor about Gwen. And apparently his coworker is also being questioned.
She was my boss.
And that's it.
Yeah, that's it. What did he tell you?
Nothing.
Then this happens. It's hinted at that this guy might actually be a Cenobite, but with how much makeup they all wear, you can't tell which one or even if this is one of the actors who played a Cenobite.
And are you willing to pay the price?
Anyway, we're back to when Trevor acquired the puzzle box.
No, the price is far greater. But you'll learn that.
I just realized that we hear that exact same sound at the end of the first Hellraiser movie, just without any kind of visual to go with it.
Hi,
What's your
Jackie.
pleasure,
Is wandering around.
That's a kind of random but pretty neat little callback.
You okay?
Yeah, no, it's just,
After that weirdness, he goes back to see Dr. Allison, where he talks about how he's
Dr.
been
Allison.
remembering Kirsty.
I miss my wife.
It sounds like you're remembering more and more. That's a good thing, Trevor. Maybe you're not the angel that you thought you were.
Yeah, Joseph Thorne looked a lot more like Angel. Seriously, though, that's an interesting choice of words. Anyway, back to work. I guess the next day he tried to find out what his coworker told the police and doesn't get anywhere.
I think I did it. Did what? Killed Kirsty. I got a report to do.
Nice one, Trev.
Just make yourself at home.
Oh, already have.
It turns out that
for
the
you,
puzzle
Trev.
box was found near the car with blood on it.
I think it was in the car.
Gee, you think so?
I kinda love Detective Lang at this point.
I got Givens ready to drag you in today on murder charges. Help me get him off my back.
And as Lang walks away, Trevor looks and sees Givens instead.
We need to talk.
It also turns out that Trevor's coworker, whose name is Brett, is leaving. Things are getting weird and the job doesn't pay well enough anyway, and I love the random awkwardness of this guy interrupting their conversation. Anyway, he confirms the info about Kirsty's inheritance.
Talking about the plan. What did you tell Lang? Did you tell him about Gwen? About the inheritance? I didn't tell him anything.
Yeah, we're all here for you, Trev.
He's still here for you, Trev. Suddenly, he's overwhelmed with another flood of memories that contradict the previous ones, and he ends up cutting himself.
I'd like to speak to Dr. Allison Dormier.
He calls the hospital and asks for Allison, but they don't know who she is. So he goes to see the acupuncturist again for his headaches. Because he had such a great experience last time,
Right.
she tells him that his body is totally healed, but his soul needs healing.
You can trust me.
Sexual healing. Wait, what about the acupuncture needles he had in his chest? Oh well. And now he's in an ambulance after apparently having passed out on the bus.
You're riding on a bus, and then you just collapse onto the floor, out cold.
Once the doctor starts examining him, he asks about Allison again.
Allison?
Yeah, Allison Dormier. She's a resident here.
I'm sorry, we don't have any resident by the name of Allison.
It's imperative that you stay calm.
Another call back to the brain surgery scene.
It's imperative that you stay calm. Just relax, Trevor. Remember, we're
We're all here for me. Go ahead, say it. Jesus Christ.
What, you don't believe that? He
We're all
goes
here
looking
for
for
you,
Allison,
Trevor.
and of course her office is being cleaned out.
Trevor?
But, there she is. Notice how the lighting changes, making her appear like an angel.
You can't undo your past. And sooner or later, you're gonna have to confront it. And it frightens me to think that I can't be there for you when you do.
Hey, buddy.
Yeah, well, I was starting to think I was going, insane or something.
Hey, buddy. What? Who the hell are you talking to?
But apparently she wasn't really there. Okay, I'm well past the halfway point, so I'm ending part 1 here. This is another good one, so I definitely recommend watching this movie if you haven't seen it yet, before I get to part 2.
I'm surprised at how many people specifically hate this movie. There we go. I caught up on the chat again. I've been around but buried. Chester Bennington of Lincoln Park is in the 7th Saw. I'm not very familiar with Linkin Park. But I guess he died in real life. That's a bummer. Any chance you might do a series review or cover Ash vs. Evil Dead? I don't know. I'm not really going to do any more of those episode vlogs. I'd like to finish Alien Nation and Monsters one day, but I don't plan to do any more after that. I did really like Ash vs. Evil Dead. It might be fun to make a video about it, but excuse me. Oh, like is more of a get drunk and mock the movie relentlessly kind of like. Okay. Music is very climactic. Yeah, it is pretty cool. I have a stack of terrible straight-to-video Children of the Corn to watch, and I can't wait to see how bad they really are. Yeah, I haven't seen any other outside of the first one. I kind of like the first. It's one of those movies everyone likes to make fun of, but I think it's generally pretty good. People are talking about Mayhem. Mayhem guy was sort of cute back then. Yeah, he's still pretty good looking, just in a more rugged way. He was in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I have not really watched that show. I think I caught a couple random I caught like a random episode and thought it looked really good, and I was like, I should watch this, but then I never did. Favorite Mayhem Allstate commercial is when he's a flag on a car hanging by a thread and ends up on another car's windshield. Yeah, that's a good one. My favorite one was where he was the teenage girl. I'm like, OMG, Becky's not even hot. Yesterday I grilled chicken and watched Dina. Today I'm grilling chicken and watching Dina. Wait, am I in hell? You know you're in hell when you can't get the snacks out of a vending machine. That is hell when that happens. Bradley's turn as the merchant makes me think he could have been a good Snape. Yeah, I could kind of see that. Edgy Disclosure remake. Boss Lady reminds me of that horny bureaucrat from Futurama. I don't know if I remember that one. Oh, hi, Living Corpse. Late to say I liked Inferno. It was disrespectful to both Hellraiser and when it was strong enough to be its own IP. Already said hi to Razorvine. Eels and escalators is probably a variation on snakes and ladders. Ah, okay. I did not get that before. Does acupuncture actually work? I've heard it helps with pain and stuff. Not like a cure-all like some people make it out to be, but... So now it's actually a Pokeball. It does look vaguely like a Pokeball now that you mention it. Yeah, the sphere is pretty cool looking. I don't remember if I responded to that earlier. How can they not credit him? Because they didn't want people to... it was kind of like an Easter egg. I mean, he plays Pinhead. It's not like he's not credited at all. He's just not credited as that character, as the merchant. Oh, he's trying to use Iron's humor. The acupuncture scene makes me wish the latter-day Hellraiser movies would have been less torture the wicked and recruit the kinky into new Cenobites. Yeah. Pinhead was low-key seductive in that scene. The mouth screw thing that makes my skin crawl. Yeah, that does look painful. I'm not sure. Hard to tell exactly what it's doing there, but it looks painful, whatever it is. Your line about how she wanted to be tied up reminds me of how somebody dies in GoldenEye and Bond says, she always did enjoy a good squeeze. Oh, God. Stitch, now I'm picturing a Cenobite saying Ohana means family. I don't get it. Either the snacks don't come out of the machine or the snacks turn into something like crabs or something when you reach in to grab them. Ugh. Oh, I have not played Stray yet. I unfortunately can't really justify spending $30 on a video game right now. I would like to play it though. Welcome back to Hellseeker, and Trevor is now remembering that he had been cheating on Kirsty with these other women, hence why he kept having visions of them coming on to him. More weirdness on the bus. This is definitely reminiscent of the subway scene in Jacob's Ladder. And now he's going back to where he got the puzzle box. But no one is there.
Poor Trevor.
Except for Pinhead in the form of a reflection again.
I hear everything. And soon you will know everything.
Why'd you delete
Much
your
more
comment,
than you
Movie
want,
Corpse?
I guarantee.
I already saw it. I can't decide if this is meant to be symbolism of some kind or if it's just meant to show that Pinhead is there but not really.
Is it so difficult to face your demons? You can't run from your past.
Trevor thinks that Pinhead is the one who killed Kirsty and the others. Of course, we know it's not going to be that simple.
The killer is amongst us. Yes.
Not like this is hell on earth or anything. Trevor's headaches start to act up and... Interesting.
Damn it!
There's that masked figure again. But then he runs into Brett again, who now confirms that he and Trevor had planned to kill Kirsty to get her inheritance.
But none of that's gonna happen now, is it? You had to go solo with your little car accident bit, and then you fucked it all up. What were you thinking, Trev?
And he knows that Lang will find out about it, and he doesn't want to go to jail, so... Stop deleting your comments, Living Corpse. That's kind of weird. The masked figure catches up to Trevor, and his headache is getting worse, so he goes to see Sage again because he just didn't learn his lesson the last 2 times. And now she's dead. By the same ice pick he thought she stabbed him with earlier. Through the head, of course. Trevor locks himself in, hoping that the masked figure won't think to look there, but of course he's not going to get off that easy. Pinhead wasn't doing in that puddle. So of course it's actually the detective, and he gets caught standing over the body holding the murder weapon.
You understand, I didn't
Save it.
Well, one thing's for sure. This ain't your lucky day.
No shit.
They found the body this morning in the river. They're bringing it into the morgue now.
So Lang leaves and Givens enters.
No, I had you pegged for bad the minute I laid eyes on you.
Have you noticed yet that these two are supposed to be partners, but you never see them together?
I just want to see my wife.
And now it's been confirmed that every woman who he thought he imagined getting murdered was actually murdered. Also, anytime Trevor looks around, he sees cops beating or otherwise torturing someone. So Lang returns and leads Trevor to the morgue so he can identify the body they found. Down several flights of stairs, their surroundings becoming darker and more basement-like. They finally seem to be getting close to the morgue. Then they come to a gate that Lang opens for Trevor and then locks behind him.
I thought you believed me.
Believe? Here's what I believe, Trevor.
And here's an interesting revelation. He talks about Trevor being basically 2 people, one good and one bad, and how he can relate to that.
Good.
Thank you, Death's Head. The lack of budget really hurt the later Cenobite designs, like how some of them reused the bodysuit. Yeah, they stayed pretty good for a while, but yeah, I do mention that at some point.
Bad, Trevor. That's how we're all made. Settle or both.
And remember how Lang is always super nice and understanding toward Trevor, where Gibbons is the more mean and accusing type, and you never see both of them together? Yeah.
And we're made up of just the right parts of both. A little heavy on the evil, huh?
A little heavy on the CGI, too. So yeah, that was the thing that happened. Trevor obviously gets the fuck away, and after finding another torture victim, finally makes it to the morgue. That has apparently been abandoned for a while because, ew. Also chains, which is kind of a hint about where this is going. But there's also a body covered in an almost pristine white sheet. Then the room shifts to the other world. I mean, this scene reminds me a lot of the scene in Silent Hill Homecoming where we first see the transition to the other world. With it being a nasty-looking hospital-like setting. Which isn't too far from what's happening. The walls fall away like in the earlier Hellraiser movies to signal the arrival of Pinhead.
I told you you couldn't run from your past forever. Eventually, it catches up with you. It is time for you to pay the price. You were willing to pay the price, weren't you?
I just want to see my wife.
In time.
Let me see my wife.
I said in time.
This is why you don't interrupt Pinhead. Ah, hooks in the face! I am never gonna get used to that. Again, we've got really thick chains and relatively small hooks, but it's not quite as bad as Inferno.
Those
hooks are so tiny.
Not so simple, I'm afraid. Let me help you remember. Once and for all.
It actually was neither coincidence nor Trevor messing with Kirsty's head when he gave her the puzzle box.
How could you do this to us?
Pinhead wanted to go after Kirsty, so he used Trevor to get to her.
You were nothing more than bait to lure a far more interesting creature.
So Trevor was lured to this place and given something that was supposed to solve his marriage problem, i.e. get rid of Kirsty in some way. So either this guy was really Pinhead or an agent of his.
I hope it's everything you want it to be.
That's another echo from earlier.
I hope it's everything you want it to be.
Anyway, Kirsty opened the puzzle box as the Cenobites watched in secret, and she was transported to hell.
Kirsty.
How did you find me?
You opened a door long ago, and it will not be closed until I get what I came for. What I want is you.
Are you fucking kidding me?